Let's be honest, October is one of the hardest months of the school year. By now, the honeymoon stage is long gone. The newness of the school year has worn off, the reality of multiple preps has fully set in, and the work just keeps stacking higher and higher. Grading piles are staring at you, lesson plans are half finished, meetings and parent emails are creeping into your evenings, and you're still supposed to show up each day with energy for your students. If you've ever caught yourself thinking, I can't keep this up, I want you to know you're not the only one. In fact, research from the Rand Corporation found that by October, 70% of teachers report feeling frequent job-related stress compared to just 40% of working adults overall. That's not you being dramatic. That's the reality of the system. So if you're exhausted, you're not broken. You're carrying more than anyone could reasonably manage. But here's the good news. You don't have to fix everything. There are simple ways to lighten your load, catch your breath, and survive October with a little more ease. That's exactly what we're diving into today. Welcome to the Secondary Teacher Podcast, the podcast for middle and high school teachers juggling multiple preps to get the strategies to reduce overwhelm so that you don't have to choose between being an effective teacher and prioritizing important relationships. I'm your host, Kristen Masick, a 10-year high school engineering teacher, former middle school assistant principal, and teacher coach. Every week, we will discuss strategies, systems, and time-saving tips to help you not only survive but thrive as a multiple prep teacher. I still remember my own Sunday scaries. Every weekend, I drag myself to the kitchen table, spread out stacks of paper, open my laptop, and try to plan out the whole week. By Sunday night, I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and already dreading Monday morning. And it wasn't just Sundays. By October, I was so behind that I had Wednesday scaries and Friday scaries too. One year, I tracked my work hours just to see what was going on. And do you know what I found? 56 hours. That's how much I was working every single week. And research backs this up. The American Federation of Teachers reports that most educators work more than 53 hours per week, far beyond the contracted hours. No wonder we're drowning. But here's what I had to learn the hard way. I wasn't the problem. The overload was. And once I started letting go of the idea that I had to do it all, I was finally able to build a few small systems that saved me hours each week. Today, I want to pass 3 of those on to you. So here's the truth I want you to carry with you through October. You don't need a brand new system. You don't need to push harder or add more to your plate. And what you need are a few sustainable tools that let you finish something on purpose, breathe easier, and leave school without carrying everything home. So let's dive into strategy 1, anchor tasks versus bonus tasks. The first shift that helped me was learning to separate anchor tasks from bonus tasks. Here's how it works. At the start of the day, ask, what are 2 to 3 things that absolutely have to get done today for my students to learn? That's the key here. There are many other things that you may want to do, but the key is for your students to learn. Number 2, write those down. Those are your anchor tasks. They hold everything else steady. And number 3, everything beyond that, that's a bonus task. It would be nice if it gets done, but your day is still successful, even if it doesn't. Once again, because it hooks around and anchors back to your students' learning. For me, my anchor tasks usually look like this. Today's lesson is ready. Tomorrow's materials are copied. My gradebook is up to date. That's it. Everything else, color coding binders, designing printing slides, reorganizing a cabinet, that was a bonus. When I focused on anchors first, I left school knowing I had done what mattered most. Psychologists call this prioritization. Studies in organizational behavior show that workers who set clear must-do priorities each day experience less stress and higher satisfaction, even when workloads remain heavy. On to our second strategy. Batch it, don't scatter it. The second shift was learning how to batch my tasks instead of scattering them. Here's the reality. Every time you switch from grading to emails to lesson planning, your brain burns energy. And by October, you don't have that kind of energy to spare. So instead, try this. First, pick one category of work. Second, give yourself a set block of time just for that category. Now, that can be certain times during the prep period or your planning periods, or it could be if you've got some planning period in the morning or your planning period, like your normally scheduled one, or the bit of time after school. You could look at those all as separate blocks. And then you could also look at various days to do different things. All of those different scenarios have worked for teachers. You just need to figure out what works for you. And then the third is to stay with it until the block is done. So you're going to continue to work on whatever needs to happen, either until you've chipped away that pile or that time period ends. So for example, you might grade during a 25-minute Pomodoro block. So the key here is you've got to remove all distractions. So you can't have your phone, you can't have your email out unless email is what you're tackling, so that you can stay focused. You might spend your prep period planning an entire week for one class instead of bouncing around between three. Now, I will say, if you're just looking at one class, make sure you are still checking in with your other classes as you are doing that, so that you can see how to make your life easier by staggering your due dates. But batching work reduces that constant gear shifting, and it means that you actually finish something instead of having 10 half-done tasks hanging over you. A study from the University of California, Irvine, found that after a workplace interruption, it takes an average of 23 minutes to regain full focus. That's why batching works. You avoid all that recovery time. Okay, strategy 3, rinse and repeat. The third shift was learning to rinse and repeat what already works. I used to feel like I needed to reinvent every single lesson to keep things fresh, but honestly, that was draining me. What my students actually needed was consistency, so I started reusing structures that worked. I used the same introduce, practice, produce pattern anytime I was doing planning, either from a unit or a lesson or even my class periods. I created templates for warm-ups and exit tickets so I could just plug in new content regardless of the course I was teaching. I repeated routines so students knew what to expect. This didn't just save me time. It gave my students stability, and it gave me the mental space to focus on what mattered, teaching, not over-prepping. Classroom management studies consistently show that predictable routines improve student engagement and reduce behavior issues. The more consistent your routines, the less mental energy you and your students waste on transitions. Teachers don't get extra credit for suffering, and your students won't learn better because you stayed up until midnight tweaking a lesson slide. They thrive when you show up rested, not burnt out. So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, I want you to hear this. You are not failing. You are not behind. You are not bad at time management. You are in survival season. And survival is not about doing it all. It's about doing less, better. So give yourself permission to let some things go. Anchor your day in what matters most, batch your tasks so your brain can breathe, and don't be afraid to rinse and repeat what's already working. You are not the problem, the overload is, and you have permission to set it down. If this episode gave you a little bit of relief, share it with a colleague who's also buried in October overwhelm, because you don't have to do it all and you don't have to do it alone. Until next time.